Welcome back to our channel, fellow Port Charles devoted. Today is a beautiful day to dive deep into the absolute masterpiece that our favorite show is delivering right now. Grab your favorite beverage and settle in, because we have so much to unpack about the incredible character dynamics currently unfolding on our screens. I am absolutely buzzing with joy after watching Dante Falconeri step up to Elizabeth Baldwin in the bustling corridors of General Hospital and quietly admit he needs a favor. The sheer vulnerability in Dante's eyes mixed with that underlying cop intuition gave me absolute chills. I feel so incredibly relieved by that scene because to me, it finally proved that the writers are utilizing Elizabeth's legacy as the moral and observant center of the hospital. When Dante looked at her, the lighting in the hallway seemed to cast this heavy, exhausted shadow over his features, and I felt a profound sense of empathy for him as a father who is completely in the dark about his own son. I know a lot of people are saying this storyline with Rocco Falconeri shooting Ross Cullum is dragging, but I actually think the slow burn is exactly what's needed because I feel like it heightens the emotional devastation that is inevitably coming. Dante is a phenomenal detective, but his absolute blind spot is his family. The way I interpret it, having Dante ask Elizabeth for a favor likely to gather more information on Ross Cullum in the shooting is a stroke of absolute genius. Elizabeth has been watching Rocco do his community service, and she has seen the sheer terror radiating from that boy. I think the writer's choice to have Elizabeth be the one to slowly piece together Rocco's guilt is brilliant because it makes me feel the historical weight of her character. She knows what it's like to protect vulnerable people, and she knows Jason is sitting in WSB custody taking the fall. Jason has sacrificed his entire life for the mob ever since his traumatic brain injury altered his path. And seeing him now sitting in a WSB cell to protect Dante's son is a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. I feel so deeply connected to Elizabeth's internal struggle because she shares history with Jason, and she knows exactly what it costs to protect a child in this dangerous town. Every time I see Elizabeth watching Rocco near Cullum's room, I feel my heart in my throat. I believe she is on the verge of putting the entire puzzle together, and when she finally alerts Dante by the end of the week, the emotional fallout is going to be magnificent. Moving over to another corner of General Hospital, I have to talk about the absolute masterclass in tension between Isaiah Gannon and Cassius. I loved the way the camera angled slightly upward at Isaiah when he looked down at Cassius and delivered that cutting line. Why should I ignore hospital protocol for you? I feel such a deep sense of triumph watching Isaiah stand his ground because to me, it shows that Isaiah's integrity cannot be compromised by a man who is clearly unraveling before our very eyes. The way I see it, Isaiah absolutely knows that Nathan isn't really Nathan. You can see it in the disdain written all over Isaiah's face. I think this is the best they've written Isaiah because they aren't dumbing him down for the sake of the plot. Cassius wasn't at Lulu's house when Isaiah made that secret house call to treat Rocco's infected hand. Lulu and Rocco were alone. So for Cassius to show up demanding special treatment, it perfectly highlights his arrogant desperation. I feel so incredibly satisfied watching a medical professional refuse to bend to the will of a manipulator. I genuinely believe Cassius is seeking off-the-books treatment for the injuries he sustained during his horrific physical fight with Jocelyn Jax, and I feel so incredibly satisfied watching him squirm. I know some fans in the fandom are complaining about the twin swap trope being overused, but I actually think this specific iteration is working flawlessly because I feel like Cassius is a deeply flawed, messy villain. He doesn't have Cesar Faison's smooth, terrifying control. Cesar Faison left a legacy of absolute terror in Port Charles, and Cassius is desperately trying to wield that same power, but he lacks his father's chilling composure. I feel like the writers are purposefully showing us the cracks in his armor. The fact that he is trying to hide his injuries from Spencer, a woman who has already survived so much trauma, shows just how vile his manipulation truly is. He is frantic, and watching him try to bully a principled doctor like Isaiah is a delicious train wreck. The wardrobe choices in this scene were also spectacular and added so much subtext. Isaiah in his crisp, professional medical attire starkly contrasted with Cassius's slightly disheveled, frantic appearance. Every time Cassius tries to use Nathan's sweet demeanor and fails, I feel a rush of excitement because the facade is cracking. I think Jocelyn really did a number on him, and the fact that he is trying to hide it from Lulu and the rest of Port Charles shows just how fragile his master plan truly is. I feel like we are counting down the seconds until his entire identity shatters. Now let's shift gears to the Quartermain mansion, because the atmosphere in that living room was thick with unspoken secrets. I loved the blocking of the scene where Harrison Chase, Ethan Lovett, and Brooklyn Quartermain Chase were discussing the late Delilah Wilson. I feel like having them gathered in such a warm, familiar family setting perfectly juxtaposed the cold, tragic reality of Delilah dying on the boardwalk. The contrast between the safety of the Q mansion and the danger of Ethan's world is so stark. I think Chase's inner detective coming to the surface is exactly what the storyline needed. When Chase leaned forward and admitted I can't shake the feeling that Delilah had something to hide, I felt a literal shiver down my spine. The way I interpret it, Chase is picking up on the frantic energy that Delilah left behind. Both he and Brooklyn sensed that Delilah was running from someone, and I believe that whoever caught up with her is going to be a major threat to Port Charles. I feel so proud of Chase in these moments because it proves that his instincts are sharp, even when he is off duty and relaxing in his living room. I feel so deeply intrigued by Ethan's presence in this scene. He just learned that his partner on this mysterious job is dead, and the subtle grief playing across his face was phenomenal acting. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we just view Ethan as a grieving friend. I believe there is a massive possibility that Ethan is the biological father of baby Phoebe. When Ethan looked at Brooke, Lynn, and Chase knowing they are fostering Phoebe, I felt this overwhelming sense of tragic irony. I think the writers are planting the seeds for a massive custody revelation, and I feel so emotionally invested in how Ethan is going to react if he realizes that little girl is his own flesh and blood. And we cannot talk about this scene without acknowledging the massive, suffocating guilt radiating from Brooklyn. I think the writer's choice to have Brooklyn involved in this conversation while secretly hiding her involvement in Jordan and Curtis's Route 91 car crash is a masterstroke of dramatic irony. Every time Brooklyn nods along with Chase's detective theories, I feel a knot in my stomach because I know she is terrified of her own secrets being exposed. Tracy Quartermain has spent decades orchestrating cover-ups to protect her family's reputation, and seeing her force Brooke Lynn into this devastating silence is classic Tracy. But I feel like Brooklyn has grown so much since her earlier days, and carrying the weight of Jordan and Curtis's fiery crash is tearing her soul apart. Every time she looks at Chase, a dedicated cop, I feel the agonizing tension of her secret. I know some viewers are frustrated that Brooke Lynn is keeping yet another secret from Chase, especially with Tracy breathing down her neck to maintain the cover-up. But I actually think this internal conflict makes her character infinitely more compelling. I feel like Brooke Lynn is desperately trying to cling to her chance at a family with Phoebe, and watching her try to act normal while Ethan and Chase dissect Delilah's secrets is a masterclass in subtle, anxious acting. Speaking of characters wrestling with their toxic choices, we absolutely must talk about Ric Lansing and Laura Collins. I feel so incredibly captivated by their heart-to-heart conversation. Ric is a character who constantly sabotages himself, and when he looked at Laura and confessed, "If I end things now, Elizabeth will never give me another chance," I felt a profound sense of pity for him. We all know Ric has a deeply toxic history. With Elizabeth, we can never forget the panic, room era, but I actually think his current desperation comes from a place of genuine, albeit twisted love. The way I see it, this is the most authentic Ric has been in years. I think he genuinely loves Elizabeth. And his desperate romantic proposal for a weekend getaway was his frantic attempt to outrun his own shadow. He knows he is sliding back into the mob web, and his proposal is his misguided attempt to lock her down before his mob ties destroy everything. I know a lot of people are saying they are tired of Ric reverting to his sneaky ways, but I actually think his inability to escape the Corinthos orbit is exactly what makes him such a tragic, fascinating figure. I feel like the writers are honoring his complex history perfectly. I feel like Laura's presence in the scene was crucial. She is trying to protect a loved one, and her maternal objective energy balanced out Ric's frantic romantic desperation. I love the way Laura listened to him, not with judgment, but with a deep, weary understanding of how mob entanglements ruin lives. I believe Laura knows that Ric's reconnection with Ava Jerome is going to blow up in his face, even if it is just business related. I feel so comforted by Laura's steady presence on screen. She grounds the heightened soap opera drama in raw human empathy. And that brings us directly to Sonny Corinthos and ADA Justine Turner. I feel such an intense rush of adrenaline watching Sonny operate when he feels betrayed by his own blood. The moody dark lighting in Sonny's space perfectly matched his simmering rage. When Sonny confided in Justine that he caught Ric in a lie, thanks to Ethan's surveillance at the Metro Court Gardens, I felt a deep sense of vindication for Ethan. Sonny has spent his entire life building an empire based on loyalty, and a betrayal by Ric cuts deeper than any rival mob boss ever could. I think Sonny's dialogue here was absolutely iconic. When he firmly stated that this was his last shot and he blew it, I felt the absolute finality in his voice. The way I interpreted Sonny is genuinely heartbroken, but his mob boss survival instincts are taking over. He trusted his brother with highly sensitive business information, and now he is terrified that Ric will use it to stab him in the back. I feel like the history between these two brothers is a pendulum of love and hate, and right now, it is swinging violently toward hate. Ethan Lovett stepping into the role of Sonny's trusted informant is a brilliant twist, especially given Sonny's complicated history with Ethan's parents, Luke and Holly. I genuinely think the dynamic between Sonny and Justine is shining right now. I feel like Justine pushing Sonny to cool off before making rash decisions proves that she is more than just a romantic interest. She is a strategic anchor for him. I loved how Justine didn't just agree with Sonny, she challenged his anger. And I think that is exactly what Sonny needs when he is spiraling over a family betrayal. I feel like their chemistry is rooted in intellectual equality, which makes their scenes crackle with energy. Ultimately, I feel like this entire week of episodes is a testament to why we all fell in love with the show. From Elizabeth quietly connecting the dots on Rocco's trauma, to Isaiah standing up to a fake Nathan, to the Quartermains dissecting a boardwalk tragedy, and the Corinthos brothers heading for a catastrophic collision, every single scene is dripping with character-driven purpose. I believe we are witnessing a golden era of storytelling, and I cannot wait to see how these explosive secrets finally detonate